The fluorescent lights of Franklin Heights Mall flickered as Marcus. Thompson pushed his cleaning cart down the empty corridor, the squeak of its wheels echoing. Through the silence of 11 p.m., his shoulders ached from the double shift, but he couldn't stop thinking about the small voice that had called out to him earlier that evening. "Daddy, are you a superhero?" His 6-year-old daughter Emma had asked that morning, her brown eyes wide with wonder as he'd tied her shoelaces before dropping her at his mother's apartment. He'd laughed it off, kissing her forehead. "No, baby. Daddy's just a janitor." But tonight, those words would haunt him in ways he never imagined. Because sometimes ordinary people are called to do extraordinary things, and sometimes a single moment of courage can change everything. Marcus had been working as a night janitor at the mall for 3 years, ever since his wife Sarah died from cancer, leaving him alone with Emma and a mountain of medical debt that seemed insurmountable. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work that let him be home when Emma woke up for school. He'd learned to find dignity in the mop bucket, pride in the gleaming floors he left behind each night. Other people walked through this mall buying things they didn't need with money they took for granted. Marcus walked through it, making sure it was clean enough for them to do so. Tonight felt different, though. There was a tension in the air he couldn't quite name, an electricity that made the hairs on his arms stand up. He'd learned to trust his instincts during his brief stint in the army, before Emma was born, and those instincts were screaming at him now as he approached the parking garage entrance. That's when he heard it, a woman's voice, sharp with fear, cutting through the thick silence. "Please, just take the purse. Take whatever you want." Marcus's blood went cold. His hand tightened around the mop handle as he peered around the corner into the dimly lit parking garage. 3 men surrounded a woman near a black Mercedes, their postures predatory, blocking her escape. She was maybe in her 50s, elegant even in her terror, clutching her purse against her chest like a shield. One of the men, tall with a snake tattoo crawling up his neck, laughed as he moved closer. Every rational thought in Marcus's head told him to call security, to call the police, to not get involved. He had Emma to think about. If something happened to him, she'd have no one. His mother was 72 with arthritis. She couldn't raise a child. Emma would end up in the system, bouncing between foster homes, losing the only parent she had left. The risk was too great. But then the man grabbed the woman's arm roughly, and Marcus saw Sarah's face. He saw every time she'd been vulnerable, every moment in the hospital when she'd needed someone to stand up for her, to fight for her. He saw Emma's future, and he knew the kind of man he wanted his daughter to remember. Marcus didn't think. He moved. "Hey!" His voice boomed through the garage, deeper and more commanding than he knew he possessed. "Security's on the way. You boys better run." It was a bluff. He was alone, armed with nothing but a mop and the element of surprise. The 3 men turned, their faces shifting from surprise to amusement. Snake Tattoo grinned, revealing gold teeth that glinted in the fluorescent light. "Security?" He laughed. "You're the janitor, man. Get lost before you get hurt." Marcus kept walking forward, his army training flooding back. Assess, adapt, act. The men were younger, probably stronger. Definitely armed if the bulge in Snake Tattoo's jacket was what he thought it was. But they were also cocky, spread out, not expecting resistance. "I said leave now." The second man, stocky with a shaved head, pulled out a knife. "Your funeral, hero." What happened next was a blur of motion and adrenaline. Marcus had maybe 30 seconds before they got organized, before they realized they had numbers and weapons. He needed to be faster, smarter, and more desperate than they were. When Shaved Head lunged with the knife, Marcus swung the mop handle like a baseball bat, connecting with the man's wrist with a crack that sent the knife clattering across the concrete. He pivoted, using the momentum to drive the end of the handle into Snake Tattoo's solar plexus, doubling him over. The third man, younger and less committed to violence than his friends, grabbed Marcus from behind. Marcus dropped his weight, breaking the hold, then drove his elbow back into the attacker's ribs. The kid yelped and stumbled away. Snake Tattoo was recovering, reaching for his jacket, and Marcus knew he was out of time. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it behind his back, in a move he'd practiced 1,000 times in basic training but never thought he'd use in a mall parking garage. "I said run," Marcus growled, his voice barely recognizable to his own ears. The three men finally understood they'd picked the wrong target. They scrambled away, Snake Tattoo shouting threats over his shoulder that evaporated into the night. Marcus stood there, breathing hard, his hands shaking as the adrenaline began to fade. He'd just risked everything, his job, his safety, his daughter's future for a stranger. "Oh my God," the woman said, her voice trembling. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Marcus turned to her, suddenly embarrassed. "Are you okay, ma'am? Did they hurt you?" "No, thanks to you." She studied him with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through him. "That was incredibly brave. And incredibly foolish. You could have been killed." "Yeah, well," Marcus shrugged, picking up his mop handle. "I've got a daughter. Wanted to make sure she grows up in a world where people help each other. What's your name?" "Marcus Thompson, ma'am. I'm the night janitor here." She extended her hand and he shook it, aware of how rough his calluses must feel against her soft palm. "Catherine Sheffield. And I owe you a debt I can never repay." The name didn't register with Marcus immediately. He was already thinking about the incident report he'd have to file, hoping he wouldn't lose his job for the altercation. "No debt, ma'am. Just glad you're safe. Let me walk you to your car. Make sure those guys don't come back." Catherine watched him with an expression he couldn't quite read as he escorted her to the Mercedes. Before she got in, she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "Call me tomorrow, Marcus, please." He took the card, glancing at it briefly. Sheffield Industries, CEO, before tucking it in his pocket. "Get home safe, ma'am." Marcus didn't call the next day. He worked his shift, picked up Emma from his mother's place, made her favorite spaghetti for dinner, and helped her with her homework. The business card sat on his dresser, forgotten in the rhythm of survival that defined his life. It wasn't until 3 days later, when his supervisor called him into the office with a grim expression, that Marcus remembered Catherine Sheffield. "Marcus, I need you to come with me," his supervisor said. "There's someone here to see you." His heart sank. This was it. He was being fired for the fight, maybe even arrested. He followed his supervisor to the mall's executive conference room, a space he'd cleaned 100 times but never entered as anything other than the invisible janitor. Inside, Catherine Sheffield sat at the head of a mahogany table, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. "Mr. Thompson," she said, standing. "Thank you for coming. Please sit down." Marcus remained standing, his janitor's uniform suddenly feeling like a costume. "Look, if this is about the other night, I can explain." "This is about the other night," Catherine interrupted. "But not in the way you think." She gestured to one of the men. "This is Robert Chen, my attorney. After you saved my life, I did some research on you, Marcus. I hope you don't mind." Marcus's face flushed. He minded very much, actually. His life wasn't something he wanted examined by billionaires and their lawyers. "Ma'am, I really need to get back to work." "Marcus, please sit." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I know about Sarah. I know about Emma. I know about the medical debt, the double shifts, the sacrifices you've made." She paused, her eyes glistening. "And I know that despite all of that, despite having every reason to walk away and protect yourself, you risked your life for a stranger." The room fell silent. Marcus finally sat, his legs suddenly unsteady. Catherine continued. "Sheffield Industries has been my life's work. I built it from nothing after my husband died 20 years ago. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I've spent years trying to figure out what to do with it that actually matters. I've donated to charities, funded scholarships, built hospitals, but the other night, you showed me something. I'd forgotten that real heroism isn't about grand gestures. It's about ordinary people making extraordinary choices." "I don't understand," Marcus said quietly. "I'm creating a foundation," Catherine said. "The Marcus Thompson Foundation for Everyday Heroes. It will identify people like you, single parents, caregivers, workers struggling against impossible odds, and provide them with the resources they need to not just survive, but thrive." Marcus's mouth went dry. "Ma'am, that's incredible, but... And you're going to help me run it," she continued. "I'm offering you a position as the Foundation's Director of Outreach. The salary is $120,000 a year with full benefits, including health insurance for you and Emma. Your medical debt will be cleared, and there's a trust fund for Emma's education all the way through college." The world tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of the table, Sure, he was dreaming, that he'd fallen asleep, mopping floors, and this was just his exhausted brain playing cruel tricks. I can't accept this. I don't have any qualifications. I'm a janitor. You're a father who works 2 jobs to take care of his daughter, Catherine said firmly. You're a man who risks everything to help a stranger. You're exactly the kind of person who understands what struggling families need because you've lived it. We'll train you in the administrative aspects. But your life experience? That's something no MBA can teach. Marcus felt tears threatening, and he fought them back. Why? Why would you do this for me? Catherine's expression softened. Because 3 days ago I was going to sell my company and retire. I was tired, Marcus. Tired of fighting, tired of the corporate games, tired of wondering if any of it mattered. Those men weren't just trying to rob me, they were trying to send a message to my competitors. It was personal, and I was ready to let them win, to just give up. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. Then a janitor with a mop handle showed me that courage still exists in this world, that people still help each other, that maybe everything I've built can actually make a difference if it's in the right hands. You gave me hope, Marcus. Let me return the favor. Marcus thought about Emma, about the nights he'd held her while she cried for her mother, about the times he'd skipped meals so she could have seconds. He thought about teaching her that the world was good, that people were kind, that heroes were real, and he realized that sometimes accepting help was its own form of courage. Okay, he whispered. Okay, yes. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the gleaming offices of the Marcus Thompson Foundation, looking out over the city. Emma was at a private school she loved, thriving in art classes they never could have afforded before. His mother had a comfortable apartment with an elevator, her arthritis medication fully covered. And every day, Marcus helped families like his own find their way out of impossible circumstances. On his desk sat a photo, Emma in her new school uniform, grinning with that gap-toothed smile that still asked him if he was a superhero. Next to it was the mop handle from that night, mounted on a plaque that read, "Sometimes the most ordinary tools can perform extraordinary work." Marcus picked up his phone and called Catherine, something he did every week now. Their relationship evolved from CEO and employee to genuine friends. The Martinez family just got their housing assistance approved, he told her. That's 50 families this month. 50 everyday heroes, Catherine corrected him warmly. Just like you, Marcus. As he hung up, Marcus realized Emma had been right all along. He was a superhero, not because he'd taken down 3 men or because he now worked in an office instead of pushing a mop. He was a superhero because he'd made the choice that mattered most, to help. When it cost him everything, to believe in goodness when the world gave him every reason not to. And now, every single day, he helped others do the same.